Hi, it's Mayor Walter Sendzik from the City of St. Catharines, and I want to welcome you back to Season 3 of Our Home with Mayor Sendzik here on YourTV Niagara, the new brand that was formerly known as Cogeco. So today we are joined by Phil Davis to discuss the upcoming Pow Wow at Montebello Park on October 1st, and later in the show we'll discuss the Welland Canal Fallen Workers Memorial with Rebecca Cann, Monica, and Darren Keay from Essential Collective Theatre. So I hope a lot of you had an opportunity to attend the Celebration of Nations that took place at the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre here in the beginning of September in downtown St. Catharines. And it was a wonderful celebration of Indigenous culture, art, music, and history in our community. It was a wonderful gathering. We had thousands of people that came out through the 3-day celebration, and it was really an opportunity for community to come together to learn more about Indigenous culture, to share in the stories and immerse yourself in the First Nations culture. And so today, on today's show, Phil Davis is here joining us. He is a Mohawk of the Six Nations of the Grand River, and he's a resident of Niagara and a cultural resource coordinator for the Niagara Regional Native Centre. And Phil is also a big advocate for positive change wherever possible. And I know, Phil, I saw you throughout the Celebration of Nations, and it was... First, I want to start with that. Before we get into the powwow, I just want to start with that. What was your feelings about the Celebration of Nations in terms of how it was in our community?
Well, it was a beautiful thing to see people of Niagara and beyond come together to help us celebrate our ways of life, to share in the arts, to share in the musics, to come and see, Buffy St. Marie, which was totally awesome concert. But all in all, I thought it was a great weekend. It's always good and for us to try as what we consider ourselves to be ambassadors for our nations, to try and re-educate people on who we are and knock down those myths. They've become barriers for our peoples to move forward in societies, and we're starting to change at a big level, and thanks to the hard work of all the peoples behind Celebration of Nations that really brought it to the forefront, put us in the newspapers, had us on social media. It was just amazing how many hits I keep seeing every time I look back at the thank you video, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. So to me, that says a lot about the effect of what was trying to be transpired there was raising awareness.
Now, were you surprised by the success as someone who was part of putting it together and played a role in the events that took place through the 3? Were you surprised by how many people came out? And
yeah, when you're part of you probably know when you're part of the planning, you're always pleasantly surprised at the success of it, because you always have, you have this biased view. Oh no, it's always going through your head. You always want the best, but you always think about the worst because you're trying to plan for it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
But I was pleasantly surprised.
I think one of the takeaways for me was how many people came out and interactive it was, and the people who were there and you talked to them, there was this feeling of inclusivity, this feeling of learning and a growing appreciation. And I think for an event that was a first-time event, because the Celebration of Nations will be an ongoing event in our community, but it was also a foundational event in Canada, because this was one of those celebrations that came out of the 150 Canadian government 150 celebration of our country, but more importantly, it was the recognition that our country is much older than 150.
Yes.
And so having this event as a celebration of nations really pushed that idea forward, that while we celebrate the confederation of the country in 1867, more importantly, the history of our country goes back thousands of years.
Yes.
And that event was that opportunity to celebrate everything, the whole coming together of the country from its origins. And the origins wasn't just about the signing of a piece of paper in 1867, as we all know. And As an extension of that, the upcoming Pow Wow on October 1st at Montebello Park, downtown St. Catharines, which is great. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be an amazing event. For those who may not know or be familiar with what a Pow Wow is, because talk about a Pow Wow has been a part of our community for a number of years as part of the Niagara Regional Native Centre.
Yes.
So talk about the origin of it, as well as we'll talk about the importance to First Nations culture.
Yeah. Well, the powwows were originated going back a few years into Fort Erie. Had some going back, and I believe it was the early 90s, and through the later 90s at the Niagara Regional Native Centre out on Airport Road.
Right.
They kind of went into flux for a little while, and now we're into our fourth year now of doing it. And the powwows, they're a culmination of different ways of life from different nations across Turtle Island, North America. And it's to bring people together. It's a gathering. It's a gathering where we come together, and we get to exchange stories. We get to bring our ways of life and showcase them to other nations. And the way it's become now, we have competition. We have traditional powwows. They have different themes to them, because with a competition powwow, the dancers and the drummers will compete against each other for a purse of monies. And the traditional powwows are strictly for just coming together and sharing songs, sharing dance styles, being with family. It's a family event.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you say Turtle Island, and for those who are watching at home, that is the First Nations term for North America.
Yes.
That is the traditional name
Yes.
for North America. And so,
Well, no, it's traditional. It's one of those catchphrases that everybody's always said right across the land. How that came to be, you can just start thinking about that, and you probably get an idea when you start thinking back prior to 150 years for everybody across the land to share that ideal that North America is shaped like a turtle when
Right.
you look at it.
Right.
So, we can go deeper into that, but we not even got enough time on the show for that one.
we'll make time
Yeah,
in future episodes,
yeah.
because I think that's an important part of the learning that that we're on a journey of learning right now.
Yes.
And that the powwow on October 1st is that continuation of that journey. So for someone coming into the park, what can they expect? How do you see it? How is it being organized? So it starts at, I believe it starts
at noon.
noon.
And we'll have what's called the grand entry.
Okay.
That'll be a procession of our dignitaries, or our flag carriers, which is started with our eagle staffs, which is our first ones into the procession, and then followed by all of the other flags. A lot of our nation's flags.
Yep.
Of the federal provincial flags will be honored
Okay.
there too. Our veterans will be honored, and all the dancers will follow in behind there.
Okay.
And they'll proceed into a large circle, and songs will be done specifically for grand entry, specifically for veterans, specifically for the flags. That's us reminding ourselves of what's important here. We're only this small little speck in the larger scope of everything, and we as human beings need to keep ourselves as humble as possible all the
Yes.
time. So, these things help us do that, help us be gentle reminders of, why we're here.
So from the procession, it leads into, is it the giving thanks? What comes after the procession? So someone's coming into the park,
Somebody
which is
will
a
do.
very sacred ceremony, the procession, and then it moves into.
Yeah, there'll be gratitudes given, and there'll be an address given to thank the peoples, to thank whoever's involved with the powwow, and to thank the Creator most of all for bringing us all together. And then we'll move into what's called intertribal powwows, where everybody, native, non-native, are not allowed, but are encouraged to come in and join into the dance arena that will be there. And it's just a large circle. However we distinguish that the day of, we'll do it. It's usually just having people sit around the edges, and they'll come in, they'll dance. And then we'll have demonstrations by all the different style of dancers that are available of the day. And it'll be from what we consider tiny tots all the way up to our elders that will be showing off their dance styles. And they'll be dressed in regalia, not costumes. That's a big misconception, is that we're dressed in costumes. They're not costumes. Costumes is something you wear at Halloween to disguise yourself.
Right.
This is regalia. This is what you're seeing is a personification of the person who is wearing it. They've either handmade it or bartered to have it made. They'll pick the colors. They'll pick the symbology that's represented on them. And you can go up and you can ask them about it, and they'll tell you all the details about every little thing that's involved with it, with the regalia.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then the music. So it goes from the dance. Who provides the music? Is that?
That'll be by the drums.
Okay. So you
Our
will have
Pow Wow drums
Pow Wow
will be there,
drummers.
and all of our songs are heartfelt, created by individuals. All the songs that we sing, for the most part, we know the origins of the song, who made them, what purpose did they serve, in those vocals that you hear us is most of them are not a language, what we call vocables, like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, di, do, but we're using our own phonetics to promote the meaning of the song.
And then you have the dance, the music. Is there going to be spoken word? Is there going to be talking about the different tribes that are there?
Well, that'll come in the different dance styles,
through
the
the
different
dancing.
songs. It's
Okay.
because, like I said before, it all comes from different nations
Right.
across the continent, and that'll be shared. We'll have an MC who will be speaking to that. You know, and there's also an arena director. He's the one that lets you know what's happening inside the Pow Wow. He's the main man for the day.
And then will there be food?
Yes, there'll be food available. There's always food. It's the only reason we get up in the morning.
So we'll have food, music, dance, and encouraging the public to participate.
There'll be crafts available too.
Bring your own seats, bring your own chairs.
Yes, please bring your own chairs.
And it's in Montebello Park. And where could people find out more information prior to? Is it
They can go on to Facebook on the Niagara Regional Native Centre and the Nurture Our Roots Pow Wow site. For that, we've been campaigning posters and placards all over the place.
Okay.
And I know the PAC is going to start advertising it as of today too.
Okay.
So there's a big, in these last 2 weeks, there's going to be a big campaign. If you don't see it somewhere, then we're doing something wrong.
So this is the first powwow that's back in our community since it's been a while since we've had a powwow in St. Catharines.
In St. Catharines, yes. We've had them previously at the Native Centre on Airport Road, but I can't remember ever having a powwow in St. Catharines. So this is
historic.
Definitely a first. It is.
All right.
Yeah.
So Phil, I want to thank you for joining us today. There's for those who are interested, it's October 1st. It starts at noon. I hope to see you out. This is an extension of the Celebration of Nations, and I'll say that because this is about the journey that we're on as a community, a journey of continuous learning about respect for all cultures, and for the First Nations in our community. This is part of where we're going as the City of St. Catharines, and I want to thank you, Phil. I want to thank the Niagara Native Centre and all the work that you're doing as we move down this path. And looking forward to October 1st. I know it's going to be a great day, and it's going to be sunny, and it's going to be a wonderful moment here in the City of St. Catharines.
Yes.
So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
So with that, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. And for the second part of the show, we're going to be talking about the Welland Canal Fallen Workers Memorial, which will be unveiled in the next little while. And joining us on the show, we have Rebecca Cann, who is familiar to those who have watched Our Home with Mayor Sendzik. She's been on the show to talk about the Welland Canal Fallen Workers and also about arts in our community. She's been a big advocate of investing in arts in St. Catharines, and she works for the City of St. Catharines as our, I'm going to say, art director. I'm giving you a title right now because I'm not looking at my notes. You're the art director for the City of St. Catharines, and you've done a wonderful job over the years to ensure that we have this vibrancy in the arts, and Rebecca was also one of the catalysts for the first Ontario Performing Arts Centre. Also joining Rebecca, we have Monica Defoe, who is the executive director of the...
Artistic director.
Artistic director. I'm giving everyone new titles today. So Artistic director for ECT, which stands for Essential Collective Theatre. Again, been in our community for a number of years, does wonderful work, theatrical productions that has really caught in the eye of a lot of the people, not just here in St. Catharines, but across the region and beyond. And in the seat next to Monica, we have Darren Keay, who is a local actor, and a local actor who's going to sit here and talk to us. No, give us a bit of a reading of one of the plays coming up, but more importantly, a graduate of Acadia University. And he's also been at Landon Academy in London, England. And so he comes with a great pedigree here. He's also been a part of the Foster Festivals. For those who have had an opportunity to take in the Foster Festival over the last 2 years, Darren is someone who has graced the stage of the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre and is really a bright light, a new light in St. Catharines. And it shows that we're attracting talent to our community because of the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre and Foster Festival. So welcome to Niagara, St. Catharines, Darren. I know you're making yourself here at home by just sitting in a chair like that. But we're going to have fun with the second part of this episode, and it's really talking about the upcoming Welland Canal Fallen Workers Memorial. So Rebecca, just give us an update on where we are. I know it's been a long process. You've been one of the quarterbacks on this development. It's important to our community, but just give us an update of where we are.
We are under construction. So
Yay.
We are in the final phase of this project. It's very exciting. We're going to be unveiling this fall.
Okay, this fall, and for those who may be driving along the Welland Canal and they see some construction happening, how is the memorial coming along with the artist? And I know you've been working very close with Derek, so talk a bit about that.
Derek was here earlier this week on Tuesday to walk around the site and check the foundations, which are being poured right now for two of the major components that are part of the site. He's very excited. We've been working together for 4 years to get to where we are today, and Derek is really moved, has been very moved and touched by the stories of the workers, 137 men who died building the Welland Canal, and the families who have been very actively a part of our conversation about the memorial and making donations to the memorial. So he's pretty excited about the fact that we are where we are.
And so the memorial is located at Lock 3 for those who may not know about it. I'm hoping everybody knows about it because it's been in the Standard. We've been talking about it. It's been on the show. You've taken it on a bit of a road show to different parts of Niagara. In terms of the investment that's been made, it's over $1 million.
Yes.
As a project, and it's captured as public art in many respects. So what can the public expect when we unveil it? Give us a sense of the magnitude, the size, the scope.
It's a small park. So this memorial experience will be an immersive experience for anybody who comes to visit it.
So what does that mean?
It means that there's just not one place where you're going to stop and read the names of the men who died. We do have at one end of the park gates of remembrance, which look like canal lock gates opening up. And that is where the names of the men are inscribed. There are their ages at time of death, the dates when they each died are all on those gates. But as you walk deeper into the park, you find yourself walking in what is a concrete lock bed, and embedded in that lock bed is a timeline of when those men died. So from 1913 to 1935 is inscribed in granite markers on the lock bed floor, and we can see a length of a line for each year that represents the number of men who died that year. So the longest line of death is in 1928 when 29 men died. That will be embedded on the floor of the lock bed. At the end of that lock bed, you're standing in front of an enormous 40-foot long steel wall. On this side of the wall, it's shiny mirror reflective surface. You will see yourself, you will see the gates behind you, you will see your surroundings. So Derek has really investigated time, the future, the past. He understands that the 137 men who died on the Welland Canal, this story is not just about those men, it's about men and women who died before them while working on the job, and men and women who are dying today while working on the job. So he very much is representing the future and ourselves. We're part of the story that he's telling through this memorial. On the other side of that wall, visitors coming to the park from the St. Catharines Museum are going to experience a blackened steel wall that's hovering over a cut in the earth. So it's hovering in the air. It represents a combination of the veil of loss that this community experienced when those men died, but also the magnitude of the construction of the Welland Canal, the enormity of it, just physically in our landscape, which I think all of us in St. Catharines and Niagara experience on a regular basis.
I think you've captured that very well. Like the memorial and its importance, not just to those who have passed in the building of it, but also what it means to the community. And as it means, there was a promise made back in 1936 by a former minister of the Canadian government saying that there will be a memorial built. And it's taken a long time for this to come together, and the past 4 years have been where a lot of the activity has taken place, but it's finally coming to reality.
Yes.
And I think the public's going to be, I hope that they're going to have this sense of awe, and because of the enormity of loss, but also what the Welland Canal and the workers who worked on it mean and have meant to our community. So I want to thank you for making sure that all the way along the line we were kept as a task force on track, because this could have went off track many different ways. But
Yes.
as an extension of that, Monica, with the Essential Collective Theatre, you're bringing to life a play, and it's called the Welland Canal Play.
We thought it was good to just go with a simple title that encapsulated what it was about. Yeah.
So tell us a bit about the play, because this is where you're bringing something to life that I think is important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I knew about the Welland Canal Fallen Workers Memorial, that it was in progress. And as a member of this community from an arts perspective, I thought that was a fascinating story to explore on stage. So for about the last year, this piece has been in development, so a lot of research went into finding original sources so that the stories are grounded in truth and grounded in history, and developing a script. But the goal is really not to just tell us the history, it's to let us experience what it was like for those people who worked on the canal. Right from Merritt, who dreamed of the canal, to the people, the laborers who were in the ditch digging through that mud in that first canal, right up to the present day for the people who work on the canal now. So the stories take us through that whole length of time. And it's interesting that you mentioned, Rebecca, that the memorial is that the artist was interested in exploring the passage of time as well as the passage through the canal, because that's in fact what we've discovered with the play. We are passing through time as we tell these stories, but it's also like we're passing through the canal. You know, we're traveling along the canal together. So the play takes us through these different episodes in history. But what's really fascinating is that we're exploring the experience of the people who were touched by the canal through those time periods. And we've got live music happening as part of the show, so the actors are all musicians, and they'll be performing music sort of that takes us through time as well, you know, so that we experience that.
So speaking of actors, 'cause I think you've brought a really human element to the building of the Welland Canal, and we have Darren here,
Yes, yeah.
who is going to give us a snippet of what we can expect of the play. So Darren, over to you.
Do you want
I'll just introduce it
describe
very
what it is?
quickly.
Yep, sure.
So this is an excerpt from the play. It's actually a description of the Gate 6 collapse. So it's 1928, and this is a worker who has witnessed one of the most tragic accidents on the canal, when one of those gigantic gates fell and many workers were injured.
Okay.
Well, yeah, here's how it went. It was August 1st, 1928. It was a day like any normal day, except we had the big move. Yeah, we had the gate at Lock 6 to set in place. And I don't know for sure how heavy, maybe 400, 500 tons, maybe more. And there were two cranes working side by side. You see this one here, it was clamped to the tracks. It was stationary, it couldn't move. And then this one here, it was allowed to move. And they had to get the beam in place before the gate was attached. So with both cranes working together, they picked up the beam and it went high. It went as high from top to bottom as Niagara Falls. So they picked up the beam, and the stationary one, it held her at one end. And this crane, it was allowed to move so they could straighten her out. And so they picked up the beam and they turned her, and they got right behind the gate. And that's when it happened. That cable on the stationary crane, it just snapped. And there was nothing to hold the other crane from going over. That beam, it was just too big and too heavy for the other crane, so she just went right over. She went right down behind the gate and pushed it, and it went slam. And there were men working on the other side of that gate. And it just cut men in two and everything. There's so many men. They're just doing their job. It was a mess. God, it was a mess.
Wow.
Thanks, Darren.
That's great. So that's that, and I think that's the essence of what we're trying to capture here is that there is people, the human, the stories behind the people who actually built the Welland Canal, and the memorial is that lasting memorial, and the play is the ability to bring to life the experiences. So the play will be performed in October?
That's right. We open on October 12th at the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre. It runs till the 22nd of October there. And then we're doing a regional tour of Niagara. So we'll be going to Port Colborne, Wainfleet, Welland, Pelham, Ridgeway, and Fort Erie.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So I'd like to thank you for coming in, Rebecca, Monica, and Darren. Thank you for joining us on the show. I'd like to thank Greg White, the fundraising chair for the Welland Canal Fallen Workers Memorial, the federal government for its support, the marine industry, the Niagara Regional Labour Council and Unifor, the community groups, including Rotary, Ontario Paper, Thorold, and the number of citizens who have donated to this amazing project. You're invited on November 12th, and that'll be the opening of the memorial. It'll be a Sunday, and it's going to be an amazing day for everyone to come out and bring to life this memorial that's long overdue. So I want to thank you for coming out. We look forward to seeing the show, and we look forward to those in our community on November 12th to coming out and as a day of remembrance for the Welland Canal Fallen workers. And it'll be an unveiling of a memorial that I think will capture the essence of what we've talked about here today. So until then, have a great fall and look forward to seeing you in the next show. Take care.